Question: would you be able to provide a spiritual perspective on global warming? Was this an agenda from the fallen beings, or something like an imbalance between the father and the mother energies that maintain the planet? Well, spiritual perspective. So, in order to really make sense of what I'm going to say here, you need to have watched my video about how the world was created. Because, well, I'll give a brief summary. So, the whole idea is that we are currently in what I call an unascended sphere, which means that there is room for people to outplay their free will. And in this unascended sphere, there are many different planets with life. Some are called natural planets because people are not abusing their free will to control and force other people. But then there are a small number of unnatural planets where people are using their free will to seek to force the free will of others, and the Earth is obviously one of them. That's why we have warfare, torture, manipulation, all this crime and all this stuff. So Earth is an unnatural planet. But what I also explained in the other video is that our entire sphere, and you look at the physical universe and how science actually keeps discovering it's bigger than they thought. But there's just, what is it? Is it 30 billion galaxies? And each galaxy has thousands of solar systems. So there are obviously many, many other planets where there is intelligent life, because the purpose, as I explained, is the growth in consciousness of self-aware beings. And there are billions and billions and billions of self-aware beings in this unascended sphere. And this sphere is in an upward spiral, meaning the vast majority of these beings are constantly transcending themselves, moving towards what I call the ascension point, where our sphere becomes part of the spiritual realm. I explained that in the other video. So what's happening is everything is interconnected. The Buddha, 2,500 years ago, talked about the interdependent originations. Quantum physics today has proven that everything is actually one interconnected whole. This means that when the entire sphere is in an upward spiral, an unnatural planet like Earth is being pulled upward by the collective. But currently, so many people on Earth are resisting this upward pull. They are resisting transcending their sense of self. You see this in many people around the world who want to hold on to the way things were in the past, or traditional values, or whatever they call it. You see people who are living almost the same way that the ancestors did several hundred years ago. And they want to maintain that lifestyle. They don't even want to go through the changes that are happening on this planet. So obviously they are close to being pulled up by the rest of the universe. So what the Ascended Masters have explained is that it's correct that the planet is warming. But this is caused by the friction between the upward pull of the rest of our sphere and the resistance in the individual and collective consciousness of so many people on Earth. So it's a little difficult to explain exactly how the process works. I don't fully understand it, but the idea is the Earth right now could have been in a higher position than it is. The reason why it isn't, it's kind of like you can say, let's say the Earth is a train that's driving down the tracks, right? And if the Earth had followed along with the rest of the universe, it would just have been rolling on the tracks. But there are so many people on Earth who are resisting self-transcendence. It's like applying the brakes on the train. And what happens when you put the brakes on? There's friction between the wheels and the track, and what does friction do? It creates heat. So that would be the simplest spiritual explanation I can provide. There is on my website, ascendedmasteranswers.com, you can search on global warming, and there is an answer there from the Ascended Masters about it. I think you can also, on Ascended Master Light, you can search on it, and there's a dictation that talks about it. So well, the simplest is this. I mean, it's literally people's resistance to change that are causing the physical planet to heat up. Now, beyond this, you also have to say that if you even look at science, will tell you there have in the past been many ice ages and many warmer periods. So there is a natural fluctuation. So we are in a period now where there is a certain natural fluctuation that is warming the planet. And the person is saying, was this an agenda from the fallen beings? And yes, the fallen beings are always seeking to take anything that happens and use it to manipulate people. So they are, in a sense, manipulating that this is man-made. And this is where you have to be careful, because the use of fossil fuels is having a negative impact on the planet. No question about that. But to say that global warming is exclusively man-made, that's a manipulation. That's because they have an agenda of manipulating people, partly of slowing down growth, partly of getting money from people, getting people to be willing to pay extra taxes that the fallen beings can then use. and so there's something to that. But you also have to realize here that what is it that global warming is really showing us? If you step back from all the outer things, it's showing us that we are not growing fast enough. We're not evolving fast enough. As I said, we're not following along with the upward trend. If the Earth had been further along on the train track, humankind would have discovered other energy sources than fossil fuels, energy sources that don't pollute. We would have discovered technology to access this energy. And so it shows us, if we are willing to look at it, that we're behind where we should have been. And this is something that as spiritual people, if we know this, what we can do is we can partly make the calls to the Ascended Masters to help people see what they haven't seen, but we can also be willing to raise our own consciousness and realize that there are other forms of energy. Now you could say that I've talked before, I've said that there are various power elite groups that are always fighting for control of the Earth. And so there is an established power elite and there's an aspiring power elite. And the aspiring power elite is seeking to overthrow the established power elite so they can take the position. So right now there's an established power elite who wants to use fossil fuels, and they want to prevent the discovery of new technology. Then there's an aspiring power elite who wants us to feel so guilty about fossil fuels that we look for other alternatives like wind and solar and this and that. But we are not really making the leap to these totally different forms of energy that are not polluting. And what the Ascended Masters have explained is that, as I explained in my video about how the world was created, that there are 4 levels of the material universe. And beyond that is the spiritual realm. And so what sustains the entire material universe, what has created the universe, is a flow of energy from the spiritual realm. And it first flows into the highest level, which is the identity level, then it flows into the mental, then the emotional, and then the physical. And there's unlimited energy coming from the spiritual realm. And the technology the Masters are talking about is that we learn how to tap into this flow of energy and use it to power devices, technological devices. But that requires us to raise our consciousness to a certain level. And part of that raising of the consciousness is that a critical mass of people become aware of these power elites and resist the manipulation coming from the power elites, where they for example, you can see that there's a very strong manipulation of saying, oh, all this kind of energy is just free energy and it's impossible. But it's not impossible, because what upholds and what creates the entire material universe is this flow of energy that is free energy coming from the spiritual realm. It is not impossible. Those who say it's impossible are those who want to keep it trapped in our current state of technology, level of technology. So there has to be a certain acceptance, a critical mass of people have to accept that it's possible to have completely free energy, which means what? Which means it can't be controlled by a power elite. It can't be used for profit by a small power elite, as energy generation is now. So there has to be a shift where we accept that energy should actually be free, completely free. You should not have to pay any money to run your car or heat your home or these kind of things. And that's a shift that hasn't happened yet. And that's why we don't have the technology. There are those who will say we have it, but it certainly hasn't been developed and become mainstream so people can use it. And so that's what we can do as spiritual people. We can look at this, we can come to accept that it is possible to actually have higher forms of energy that will not pollute, that will not require us to wreck the earth to extract it, and also that cannot be monopolized by a power elite.